Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unbound. I am Beth Curry. Today's chapter is called Weather Balloons, named after one of Mom's clearest memories from childhood, when her father would send up these big weather balloons in Big Trout Lake. This chapter is kind of about how creativity persists even when memory fails, and about the caregivers at Willow Grove who preserve dignity, Willow Grove and everywhere, and about the worst 16 hours of my life after Dad died. Weather balloons. Tell me about Big Trout Lake, Mom. Her eyes light up with a memory that seems to float like those weather balloons she loves to describe. Oh, that's where Dad would send the great big white ones up, as high as the ceiling. She gestures toward the Willow Grove lobby ceiling, then pauses. My dad, your grandfather, your papa, he was a meteorologist. The stories come in pieces now, like a puzzle we're constantly reassembling. It would get so cold in the winter, your Nana would bundle me up. She smiles at the memory of being cared for, then adds with pride, she was a nurse, you know. Tell me more about that time, I prompt, watching her navigate through layers of her early life. We moved to Sept-Îles after that, and Sandy came along. Her face brightens with the mention of her sister, then clouds with uncertainty. Do I still have my sister? Did she die of leukemia? The questions come rapid fire now, memories tangling. No, my mom died of leukemia. My mom is gone. Do I still have my dad? Before I can answer, she's shifted time frames again, her mind skipping like a stone across the decades. I don't remember my first grade teacher, but I know I skipped grade 2 because I was bored. Then suddenly she's connecting past to present, her teacher's mind making links across time. Do you remember? Your dad and I thought you were bored in school too because you were too smart for what they were teaching you. Her pride in my childhood achievements remains intact even as other memories fade. You were reading encyclopedias when you were 3 or 4. You were a very smart kid. You asked a lot of questions, questioned a lot of things and people, critical thinker. Then another shift, another time period. Do you remember Mrs. Sterling? She lived near us, and you gave her a beaded purse. She lived over by the Almost family. And before I can respond, I haven't seen them at work lately. The past and present weave together in her mind now. Big Trout Lake, Sept-Îles, her sister's birth mixing with memories of loss, her career at the church feeling as immediate as her own childhood. She's simultaneously the bundled-up child in the northern cold and the retired church worker wondering about absent friends and colleagues. There was a grown-up situation, Mom says, her voice dropping as if, now decades later, she needs to keep it quiet. When you and your sister were little. Her natural role as peacemaker surfaces in the memory, that lifelong need to smooth troubled waters to make sure everyone was okay. I just wanted everyone to be happy, she says, and I see myself in her words. That inherited desire to fix things, to keep peace, to maintain harmony at almost any cost. I didn't want any fighting or tension, no sadness. Her hands twist in her lap, still trying to work out knots that existed years ago. The specifics of the conflict have slipped away from her now. I know it hurt, she says, frustration creeping into her voice. But I don't remember what happened. My parents were mad, and I didn't see much of my sister. I know at this point she's referring to some tension within her side of the family, an incident I didn't learn about until I was older. Then comes the familiar cataloging of who remains in her life. Who do I still have? You have your sister, Mom, but your mom died in 2006 and your dad died in 2012. And Dave, she adds, but before I can prepare for the usual grief cycle, she surprises me with, he's off playing another round of golf. In this moment, she's created a gentler reality for herself, one where Dad is just out on the golf course, where the day's greatest tension is how long he'll take to play 18 holes. Sometimes I wonder if these moments of confusion aren't confusion at all, but her mind's way of finding peace, of being the ultimate peacemaker, even with herself. She says he's off playing another round of golf, and for a moment, I let my own heart follow that thought. I like to think that's exactly what Dad is doing, playing on the most perfect course ever designed, the kind that exists only in heaven. In my mind, he's there with all his old buddies who left before him, maybe even getting to show my grandfather how to perfect his swing. The weather's always perfect there. No one keeps the score too seriously. The 19th hole is always open, and the beer is always cold. It brings me comfort, this image of Dad doing what he loved most, taking his time on the back nine like he always did, in a place where time doesn't matter anymore. When Mom's mind drifts to Dad golfing instead of remembering he's gone, maybe she's giving us both a gift, a moment's respite from grief, a glimpse of a peaceful truth I choose to believe in. That somewhere on the most beautiful course ever known, Dad is still playing the game he loved, surrounded by friends and family who were waiting for their chance to join his foursome. Your dad organized the golf tournaments at Brant Bible, Mom says, her mind swinging back to those church days. You used to caddy for him. I remember, Mom. I do, every detail. Those memories have become more precious since he's been gone. Each one a small treasure I polish in my mind. Remember the lightning? I prompt, and her eyes widen with recognition. Oh, on the last hole. The memory sparks clear and bright as the lightning itself. That storm came so fast. For a moment, I'm there again. The tournament almost over, that desperate decision Dad and his group made to play through, the sky turning an impossible color. The connection to the helicopter crash by the Ford plant helps anchor the memory in time and place for her. Real events, real consequences, and my real fear masked by Dad's determination to finish the round. The lightning strike that knocked us all down, the thunder so loud it felt like being inside a drum. I start to remind her about my own weather trauma, the F4 tornado during that camping trip, but she's already creating, her mind spinning weather into whimsy. Her eyes get that familiar sparkle that always preceded her spontaneous poetry. When the hailstones danced with the lightning's flare, the sun wore a raincoat and styled its hair. She looks almost surprised at herself, like she didn't expect those words to come. I'm pretty silly sometimes, aren't I? But she's not silly. She's magical. Even now, even with all the confusion and lost memories, she can still transform a terrifying moment into something delightful. She can still find rhythm and rhyme in the chaos of memory. Even as dementia reshapes Mom's cognitive landscape, her creative spark remains remarkably intact. It's a fascinating quirk of the disease. While short-term memory and certain cognitive functions decline, creative expression and artistic abilities often persist. Neuroscience tells us this is because creative functions engage multiple parts of the brain simultaneously, creating alternate pathways when some neural connections begin to fail. The spontaneous poetry that was always her special gift still surfaces like sunlight breaking through clouds. Research shows that the parts of the brain responsible for rhythm, rhyme, and creative expression are often more resilient to dementia's progression than areas controlling memory and executive function. It's why many patients can still sing, paint, or create long after other abilities begin to fade. When she breaks out in song with changed lyrics or recites a random poem, she's demonstrating something remarkable. The persistence of creativity, the way art and expression can find paths through the tangles of a changing brain. Her silly poems are actually small miracles, evidence of the mind's resilience, proof that some lights keep shining even as others dim. Nurturing Mom's creative moments has become a delicate art of its own, like tending to a garden where you're never quite sure what might bloom, something I've started doing myself. Lack of a green thumb, but I'm staying persistent and succeeding. When I see that familiar sparkle in her eye, that slight tilt of her head that usually precedes a spontaneous rhyme, I've learned to pause, to make space for whatever might emerge. Sometimes it's as simple as leaving silence after she makes an observation, giving her mind room to transform it into verse. Other times it's about offering gentle prompts that might spark her creativity. What do you think those clouds look like, Mom? Or remember how you used to make up songs about everything? These creative moments seem to ground her, giving her a sense of self when other aspects of identity feel shaky. When she shows her creativity to me, she's not a patient or someone struggling with memory. She's just Mom, doing what she's always done, finding whimsy in the ordinary. I have been recording our conversations both on paper and on a recording device, capturing her spontaneous creations. Not just to preserve them, but because the act of recording them validates her continuing ability to create and helps with writing her story too. I don't forget anything. That's a good one. Mom, let me write it down, I'll say, and watch her face light up with the recognition that her words still matter. Still have value. The key is not to pressure or expect. Creativity can't be forced, especially now. Instead, it's about creating conditions where it might naturally emerge, sharing memories, looking at nature, engaging in conversations about things she loves. It's about celebrating these moments when they come, treating each small poem or song as the gift that it is. Sometimes she'll surprise herself with her own creativity, like she did with the Hailstone poem. I'm pretty silly sometimes, aren't I? She'll say, and I make sure to tell her no, she's not silly, she's special. She's still creating beauty, still finding ways to make the world more magical through her words. The silence is broken by approaching footsteps and a melodic, "Kathy, how are you doing today, my sunshine?" He sweeps into the room like a Caribbean breeze, his smile bright enough to light up the whole floor. Mom's face transforms at the sound of his voice. She doesn't always remember his name, but her body remembers his kindness, responding to his warmth like a flower turning toward the sun. "There's my handsome friend," she says, and he laughs that rich laugh of his, the one that seems to start in his toes and work its way up. "Always flirting with me, Kathy. What will your Dave say?" He rubs her shoulder with gentle hands, his movements practiced but never routine. Each small act of care feels personal, intentional. "Dave's golfing," Mom tells him with complete conviction, and he doesn't miss a beat. "Then I guess we can flirt a little bit today, my sunshine." He winks at me as he pats her again on the shoulder. "But only a little bit because your daughter's watching and I don't want to get in trouble." Mom giggles, actually giggles, and for a moment she's both young and timeless. I don't know his name. I just know his face and that he works at Willow Grove. I also know he has this gift of meeting her exactly where she is, playing along with whatever reality she is inhabiting while somehow keeping her anchored in the present moment. These caregivers who truly understand are worth their weight in gold. He, like the best of them, knows that care isn't just about medications and schedules. It's about preserving dignity while building genuine connections. He's learned Mom's rhythms, knows when to joke and when to gentle his approach, understands that her reality might shift multiple times during a single interaction. "Your mom loves her little jokes with me," he tells me with a warm smile as she drifts into a story about some musical entertainment she remembers watching. He knows her history now, not just her medical chart, but her essence. Knows she was a caregiver herself, knows about Dave's golf, knows she responds better to playful banter than clinical questions. Sometimes people treat dementia patients like they're already gone, talking over them rather than to them. But this memory companion, as I like to call them, and others like him recognize that Mom is still here, just accessing the world differently now. They adjust their approach without diminishing her personhood. When Mom's anxious about Dave's whereabouts, these special companions don't rush to correct her or redirect her. They might say, "He's probably still on the golf course, but let's get you some lunch while you wait." They weave themselves into her reality instead of trying to force her into ours. "Your mama has the sweetest heart," he often tells me. "Even when she's confused, she's trying to make sure everyone else is okay." He sees her, really sees her, not just the disease, recognizes the essence of who she is, that core of caring that dementia hasn't touched. These are the caregivers who make Willow Grove feel less institutional and more human. They're the ones who remember that Mom likes her water with just a little ice, that she gets overwhelmed in large groups, and she loves her fruit. They treat her not as a collection of symptoms to be managed, but as a whole person with a lifetime of experiences that still matter. The difference in Mom's well-being when she's with caregivers who understand is profound. With the ones like him and others like him, her shoulders relax, her smile reaches her eyes, her anxiety visibly diminishes. They help her maintain her dignity by treating her like she's valuable. "Tell me about those cats again, my sunshine," he said, pulling up a chair like he has all the time in the world, even though I know his schedule is packed. He understands that dignity lives in these moments, when someone shows genuine interest in your stories, even if they've heard them before. These caregivers know that Mom spent decades being the one who cared for others. They let her mother them sometimes, accepting her concern about whether they're eating enough or if they're too tired. It's a delicate dance, allowing her to express her nurturing nature while still maintaining professional boundaries. When she's having a day where confusion leads to frustration, the best caregivers know how to preserve her dignity without dismissing her feelings. "It's okay to be angry, Kathy," they'll say. "Your brain is working extra hard today." They validate her experience while helping her navigate it. They know the importance of small dignities, too. Keeping her nails painted because it makes her feel put together, helping her brush her hair before she leaves her room, making sure her clothes match, even on days when she doesn't leave her room, addressing her by name instead of just honey or sweetie. They understand that dignity isn't just about the big things. It's about all the tiny ways we show someone they matter. Their job is to help her keep being who she is, just in a different way now. That's what the best caregivers do. They create space for mom to still be mom, even as the shape of that role changes. "Do I still have Maddie?" Mom asks suddenly. "Yes, Mom, she's visited you here with her daughter." "We met at school," Mom says confidently, and I watch her mind work to create connections, to make sense of a friendship that spanned decades. "Think about it a little more, Mom. Where did you really meet Maddie?" Her face changes as a different memory surfaces. No, we worked at Faro together." The certainty in her voice is stronger now, more grounded in real memory rather than assumption. "There was Olga on the switchboard." She smiles at this detail emerging from the past. "My boss was..." The 1980s come alive in her telling. A time of switchboard operators and workplace friendships when Faro was making plastics and creating possibilities. "I brought home that funny-looking thing," she says, "and I remember it too, that abstract sculpture paperweight type thing made from leftover plastic that sat on a shelf for years, a conversation piece that needed explaining to every visitor." "Maddie," she says, her smile widening. "We called her that because of moonlighting. And her car?" The memories are flowing now, each one pulling behind it like cars on a train. "She had that speaker on the outside of her car, and there was that accident." The details might not all be chronologically correct, but the emotional truth of this friendship shines through decades of shared experiences. From Pharaoh's switchboard to Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd's weekly adventures, from car speakers to car accidents. These connections remain even when the timeline gets fuzzy. "I went to teacher's college at 17, Mom says, her mind traveling back in time. "Lived with my aunt in Simcoe." She pauses, reaching for details that seem just out of grasp. Then suddenly, "The movie theater. I took crew there, remember?" The way her memories jump decades from her own youth to her grandson is remarkable. Past and present dance together in her mind, each memory triggering another across time. "Remember Panama City Beach with my mom and dad?" Her face lights up. "That was so much fun, wasn't it?" "We took the Ford Taurus wagon," I remind her. "We left early in the morning. Do you remember what happened during rush hour?" "Dayton, Ohio," she exclaims. The memory suddenly crystal clear. "We broke down right on the expressway. The police car." She pieces it together. "You and me and Jen in the police car. Dave with the tow truck." Then her voice changes, takes on a knowing tone. "Your dad started smoking again on that trip." The memory opens a door she walks through without hesitation. "He got lung cancer and died." "Did I know that?" "Yes, Mom, and you remembered it." "Did he know he was going to die?" The question hits me hard because I've been wrestling with this myself. Dad, ever our protector, holding his cards close until the end. All those signs I didn't want to see, or maybe couldn't see. The pieces I've put together since he's been gone, using the investigative skills that were useless when it mattered the most. While his death shocked us, I'm convinced now he faced it alone, protecting his girls one last time. Mom's memory might be failing, but sometimes her questions cut straight to the heart of things I'm still trying to process. Here she is, cycling through decades of memories, yet somehow landing on the one thing that keeps me awake at night. How much Dad knew, how much he carried alone. The day after we lost Dad, Mom was startlingly present. It was as if grief had temporarily burned through the fog in her mind, leaving her clearer than she'd been in years. She'd spent that day with me while Brian handled the overwhelming logistics that death demands. Jen joined us. It was hard, but there was something almost sacred about that clarity, about being able to share our initial grief together, mother and daughters united in loss. But a few days later, something shifted. The fog rolled back in, bringing with it a terrible new pattern. For 16 excruciating hours, we lived through an endless loop of discovery and devastation. "Where's Dave?" "He died, Mom." "When?" "Thursday." Why? Cancer. Did I know? Yes, Mom, you called 911 when you realized he wasn't just sleeping. Then moments later, where's Dave? There was no breaking this cycle, no distracting her, no redirecting to gentler topics. Each time was the first time for her, the shock, the disbelief, the grief, all fresh and raw. Meanwhile, Jen and I were trapped in our own private hell, not just processing our own grief, but witnessing Mom experience the devastation of losing Dad hundreds of times over. It was a different kind of trauma, watching your mother's heart break again and again and again. Every time she asked about Dad was like watching a wave approach shore. You knew exactly when and how it would crash, but were powerless to stop it. For 16 hours, we relived not just our loss, but hers, multiplied by hundreds of repetitions. The grief counselors and psychology books don't prepare you for this, for how to handle someone experiencing the same devastating loss hundreds of times in a single day, for how to maintain your own sanity while watching your mother's mind refuse to hold on to the hardest truth it's ever had to learn. That endless loop still haunts me. Each iteration was exactly the same, like a record stuck in the deepest groove of grief. Where's Dave? A pause, a breath, knowing what's coming. He died, Mum. The shock crossing her face, fresh every time. When? Thursday. Why? Cancer. Her face darkening with anger. From smoking? Yes, Mum. Did I know? Yes, you found him. You called 911. Processing. Then the shadow lifting, confusion returning. Where's Dave? You can't prepare for something like this. There's no guidance for how to maintain your own grief while witnessing hers multiply endlessly. No instructions for how to keep your voice gentle on the 100th time, even as your heart is being shredded by the repetition. The worst part was knowing we couldn't stop it, couldn't soften it, couldn't distract her or redirect her thoughts. Each time the loop reset, we had to ride it through to its inevitable conclusion, only to start again moments later. It was grief fractal, the same pattern, repeating at every scale. Infinite variations of the same devastating moment. Jen and I took turns sometimes, tapping out when the weight became too much, but there was no real relief. Even in another room, you could hear it starting again. Where's Dave? That summer moment with Dad in 2022 haunts me now. Him leaning against the car, vulnerability cracking his unusually stoic facade. I don't know what I would do without her. The weight of those words, the fear behind them. He was watching Kathy, the love of his life, slowly slip away, seeing glimpses of a future he couldn't bear to imagine. The cruel irony twists in my heart. He was preparing himself to lose her, to watch her mind continue its gradual retreat, to face a world without his Kathy. Instead, he left first. Whether he knew how sick he was then, whether he was already carrying the knowledge of his own mortality along with his fears for her, I'll never know. But I remember his face in that moment. The raw honesty of a man who'd left my mother for over 50 years, trying to imagine existing without her. Dad protected us until the end. Me, Jennifer, Mom. From his illness, from his fears, from his pain. But in that one moment, leaning against the car, he let me see just how deep his love for my mother went. How the thought of losing her was the one thing that could crack his carefully maintained composure. The universe had other plans. Instead of him having to learn what to do without her, she had to learn over and over again how to be without him. Where's Dave? The question that never stops coming, the loss that never stops being new. Okay, let's chat. The spontaneous poetry that still emerges from Mom when the hailstones danced with the lightning's flare, the sun wore a raincoat and styled its hair. I still think that was so cute. That's not just a quirk, it's neuroscience. Creative expression engages multiple parts of the brain simultaneously. When some of those neural pathways fail, mine must be, creativity finds alternate routes. So the areas responsible for rhythm, rhyme, and artistic expression, as I said in the chapter, are more resilient to dementia's progression than memory centers. So Mom can create one of these whimsical poems about weather in the moment, even on a day when she can't remember what she had for breakfast or if she even had it at all. She says she's silly, but she is really just demonstrating her brain's remarkable resilience. And like I said, these poems are small miracles. Absolutely. The caregiver I talked about in this chapter, the one who calls her my sunshine and plays along when she says Dave's golfing, he understands something really crucial. Care isn't just about medications and schedules. It's preserving dignity while building a genuine connection. Like I said, the best caregivers meet mom where she is rather than trying to force her into our reality. They know her history. They know everything about her. They let her still be mom in whatever capacity, whatever way she needs to be on any given day in any given moment. They're worth their weight in gold. They're the reason that Willow Grove works for her. They treat her as a human, a whole person with a lifetime of experiences that still matter. She's not just a collection of symptoms to manage. She's not a label. She is a human. Writing about those 16 hours after Dad died, that was hard to put on paper. It was hard to live, but it was especially hard to put on paper. Watching Mom discover his death hundreds of times in a single day broke something in me that I'm not even sure ever fully healed. That conversation over and over and over and over. It still kind of happens sometimes. It's not as repetitive, obviously, and it's not as fresh. Like, I'm pretty dead inside again, where it comes to that. I don't want to say dead inside. I still have my moments. I still have my days. My friends know that. My family knows that. Grief counselors, though, they don't prepare you for this. They don't cover how to maintain your own sanity while watching this happen on an infinite loop. There was no way to stop it from happening. And, Jen and I kind of each stepped up back and forth for each other when we needed to. I wish that I could say, that we had a solution for this, but we had to ride it out. I honestly, I didn't find, and I still haven't found any resolution, any practical solution, any way I can guide someone who's listening to this who might have experienced that, be experiencing it, or will experience it. It's a special kind of hell, gotta say. So going into some questions from listeners, from Tom. In Fading Echoes, you talked about keeping visits smaller and quieter. Do you ever miss being able to do bigger family gatherings with your mom? Yeah, I do. I miss holidays where mom was at the center, Easter, Thanksgiving, birthdays, those kinds of things. She loved hosting and organizing and making everything special. I miss her being able to handle a house full of people, her element. But grieving what was doesn't change what is, So now our gatherings, they're a little bit different. They're smaller, they're quieter, they're shorter. And that has to be okay because it's what she needs. And I don't want to push her past her limits just so that we can have the big family moments to remember. I do have a chapter coming up. Another really hard one that I had to write about our last Christmas and what this year is going to be like. So, listen for that. But yeah, I miss it. But I'd rather have quality time with her in ways that she can handle rather than force something, that would overwhelm and upset her. I have a message here from Jen, not my sister, different Jen. You mentioned in warning signs that your mom sometimes yells at people making noise when she's overwhelmed. How do you handle the embarrassment of that? I kind of talked about it. The embarrassment is real. Mom was always careful not to hurt or offend people, and then yelling out of anger, it's kind of hard to watch. So yeah, like I said, I intervene quickly when I can. I apologize to whoever's on the receiving end. If I need to, I explain she has dementia. Most people understand. So, it's not mom, it's the disease. The woman who raised me would never behave this way. Her frontal lobe damage has taken away her filter and her ability to regulate those impulses. She can't help it anymore. Then she can help forgetting that Dad is gone, right? And the embarrassment that I feel, that's mine to manage. That's not hers. She doesn't even remember the incident like 5 minutes later. So, I just kind of try to handle it. Next episode is actually one that's still a difficult topic for me. I had to handle it in a unique way as I haven't fully shared yet the story in its entirety. However, I do have a book coming up. I actually just finished writing the manuscript when I was in Los Angeles. Yeah, so that's upcoming. It's about my adolescent trauma and my young adulthood, and it will, cover the story more in detail. So it might seem a little bit, vague or whatever when we get into it, but hopefully you all will get the gist. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments that I might be able to address on a future episode of the show, please email me or join the Facebook group. And if you want to support the show, all the information, email addresses, all the links, everything, that'll be in the show notes. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit authorbethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.